Hello and welcome to part 3 of how to support your teachers in planning with the instructional unit guides for science. We've already covered how to get to the unit guides and how to use the interactive features, and we've looked at beginning working with the unit planning sheet, and we want to continue on with that. And I went back to what we started at the end of unit 2, of part 2, on our unit 2 planning, because I want to make sure that you understand one very important concept, and that is when we talk about what we want students to learn, we need to look at page 6 and the evidence statements. So what it is that students should be learning really goes along with those evidence statements. So I would like for you to go on to page 6 and kind of look at that as we go through this. You can click on the link if you're on the interactive electronic copy and make it a little bigger so you can see what it is that's happening on that evidence statement. You can also look at it on page 6 in the instructional unit guide, but it's a little bit small. So the evidence statements are the drilled down to exactly what it is the students should be able to do. And it's important to understand this information right here. Teachers need to choose activities and labs that will cover several items. They need multiple exposures to become proficient. It's not significant learning if there's only one thing that students are getting out of the lab and you have to do 47 different labs. It's much better if they can get many things out of the one lab experience. And that's a little bit different for some of our teachers, especially those who've been teaching kind of the same curriculum for a long time. It does require a shift in what we teach and how we teach it. And that's one of the reasons that we're doing extra planning support and why we're offering science clinics on content is because our teachers do need to have some updated information of things that are out there that are different than what we've done in the past. We can't teach these standards the way we've always taught science. It does require a shift. The other thing is that the science and engineering practices are like the math practices. They are requiring us to shift in how we teach. It's not just what we teach, but how we teach. And when we look at those evidence statements on page 6, you should see that students are identifying things, they're designing things, they're building, they're describing, they're evaluating. Those are higher level skills of application and above. And it's not enough for kids to memorize information. They have to be able to apply that information at a higher level skill. And that's something that is not easy for our teachers that have given a lot of information for memorization to shift in that type of instruction. So they are going to need some help with that, and it will be a period of trial and error to get people to shift with this. So please encourage them to be doing things with students that do take it up to that application level. So let's go back to page 7 of the instructional unit guide, and I want you to notice on page 7 the comments section. This is information teachers need to understand connections, relationships to previous learning, and how this is going to prepare them for future learning. So it's important that teachers look at those comments and make sure that they're getting enough information. We need some feedback to know if they need more information in those comment areas. The next thing on the page 7 of the instruction unit guide is the previous standards, and that is learning that should have happened, and it will tell you kind of when it should have happened. Like this one says 4th grade, so it has a 4 in front of it. That should have been 4th grade. Well, because our standards have only been in effect since 2013, and we really only began implementing them last year in the elementary buildings, a lot of our students coming in will not have had these previous standards. It's important for our teachers to determine what reteaching or new teaching of standards that have not been covered is going to have to happen. Because if they don't have that previous standard down, they're not going to be able to do what they need to do at the middle school level. So teachers may have to go back, reteach, or review information from something that should have been previously learned. The next thing it talks about are the future standards, and the future standards is where it's heading in high school. So the teachers need to look at the previous standards to say this is where they should have been, what they should have learned, and this is where they're going. So they can tell students in high school, this is what you're going to do with that information. The next thing that we need to look at are the questions for the assessing learning. And just like on Unit 1, the teachers can use these for assessments. They can also be things that you use for like your essential questions type of thing. You know, are the students really understanding what's going on here? You also have math and ELA connections, and the links on the electronic version of the instructional unit guide will actually take you to those actual things. So you can actually go on there and click those, and we'll bring up the math and the ELA Common Core items so the teachers can read and see exactly what they should be doing there. There's another area here called STEM careers, and we are going to be spending some time this year gathering videos of professionals in STEM related careers that relate back to what we're doing. So when we're looking at waves, we can find somebody who uses that information in a STEM related career, science, technology, engineering, or math, and have a short 1 to 3 minute video talking about the career and education needed to get there, so students will have something to relate with STEM on that. When we go on to the next part, we're looking at this information of resources that teachers might need to help them get caught up with their concepts. And again, a lot of teachers are teaching things that they haven't taught before, and they may need some help on getting caught up with content. There is no shame in that. They should not be made to feel they should know all this information, because some of it is new learning for them. Finally, we have the activities and the resources, which are really the heart of the matter here on our instructional unit guide. But the activities and resources listed are suggestions. They're things that we know meet next generation science requirements, but there are additional things, and we will be adding to those. So we definitely want the teachers to be using things that meet those 8 science engineering practices, disciplinary core ideas, and the cross-cutting concepts. We will be adding to these. Part of those monthly planning support times are times when teachers can share, and we can get some more ideas to add to these resources so they will continue to grow, develop, and become even more useful for teachers. I'd like for you to switch now to page 9, if you'll go over there. When you go there, you should see that it says the previous page was MSPS 3. That's what we were just looking at on pages 6 and 7. And now we're at MSPS 4.1, and that's what we're looking at on pages 8 and 9. So if you look at the evidence statement, MSPS 4-1 is on page 8 for the evidence statement, and on page 9 it's the guide, and it has comments, it has the previous standards for MSPS 4-1, it has the questions for learning, the connections to math and ELA. So you should see that those are different. So teachers need to understand that when you're putting these units together, you do need to address all those separate performance expectations. So looking back over here at page 8, we want to say, what is it that students should be able to do at the end of this instruction? So again, looking at the evidence statement, realizing it's not just memorization of content, but application of content and exactly what they're supposed to be doing. On page 8, it has them, again, identifying things. It has them being able to look at models, which is a huge part of math and science. And it has them being able to look at the representation of data. And so that's something that we are going to have to be having our students do more of, and that's why we're making so many connections with math and science, because they do truly go together very well with the next generation science and the Common Core math. On page 14 of your instructional unit guide, you will see that we begin what's called Unit 3. So you can look at page 15 and you'll see that the unit title is thermal energy. So we're no longer doing waves, we are now doing thermal energy. And page 14 actually has the evidence statement for that. Now that MSPS 3.3 is one that we use in waves. So again, it will be used in thermal energy. So you can see how the students will get multiple exposures to things over several different lessons, dealing with different essential parts that all come together. And that is so different than how we've taught in the past. So again, this is different planning for teachers. It's a different way of doing things. As we're going through on your unit planning guide, you'll see that it has it broken down into days. So we'll have different information. So we'll continue on looking at that unit planning guide. And this part the teacher should be able to do without a lot of assistance. Now, if they do need assistance with that, they need to come to those planning nights the first Thursday of every month, or you need to have me come out there and work with them, because this gets really into more of the actual science part of things. So when they're looking at their daily lessons and planning with the 5E model and seeing here's the objective and how does it tie into the big idea, and what are the science engineering practices, what are the relevant disciplinary core ideas, what are the cross-cutting concepts, the vocabulary materials, the lab sheet, all that information, the assignments, that is more down to the daily level planning, and they may need some actual science content help with that as well. So that is done looking at day to day. So every one of those days would then have that science lesson planning guide from the instructional unit guide itself, and that was, if you remember, back to page 3. So if you went back to page 3 and you saw that K through 12 science planning guide, teachers could use it for that day-to-day planning. They don't have to, but they can. Unit planning is different from daily planning. Unit planning is for the big picture. It covers several weeks, definitely several days, and it's for the long term, whereas the daily planning is a day-to-day thing. Okay, so they are different. I am going to be providing you with some resources to help planning, and that's going to be in the next section of the videos. So this will end the part for unit planning, and the next set of video will talk about resources to help with planning and resources to understanding the next generation science. So thank you very much for going through this, and I hope it's helpful, and please give me feedback so that we can make them better. Thank you.